She wasn't supposed to be there. Not at that hour, not in that room, and definitely not standing that close to him. But when their eyes met, every rule, every line they'd drawn between them, began to blur. He was her boss's cousin, too young, too sincere, and yet something about the way he looked at her made her forget all the reasons she shouldn't feel this way. When she whispered, "Don't pretend you don't want me here," and he answered, "I stopped pretending a long time ago," the story of them truly began. She didn't look surprised to see me, only slightly amused, as if she'd been expecting this all along. "You're not supposed to be here," she said softly, voice low, smooth as the hum of a cello. Then, after a pause that felt longer than it should have, she added, "But I'm glad you are." The words lingered between us like perfume, warm, slow, impossible to ignore. The room wasn't large, but everything in it felt deliberate, soft lamplight bleeding across shelves of old books, a window half open to the sound of evening rain, her glass of wine sitting untouched beside her. She stood near the desk, in a pale blouse that caught the light like it had been waiting for her skin. I should have left the moment she spoke. "I didn't," I said quietly. "Don't pretend you don't want me here." She turned her head then, finally meeting my eyes. "Don't pretend," she repeated, as if tasting the word. "You don't know the first thing about pretending." I stepped closer. Close enough to smell the faint trace of something floral on her wrist. Close enough that her breath brushed the edge of mine. There wasn't anything reckless in it, only a quiet pull neither of us wanted to name. I'd seen her a dozen times before, polite, poised, distant. My boss's cousin, the one who always arrived late to dinners, stayed quiet during meetings, and left before anyone else. But this time, this evening, something was different. Maybe it was the rain, or the way the light softened the edges of her face. Maybe it was me, standing here, no longer pretending not to look. "Why did you come?" she asked finally, her voice dropping, as if even she wasn't sure she wanted the answer. "I don't know," I said, though we both knew that wasn't true. Her hand grazed the side of the desk, fingers tracing a ring of condensation left by her glass. Every small motion of hers carried an unspoken language, restrained, careful, and yet heavy with things unsaid. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered again, but the words sounded thinner now, like a formality. "Maybe," I said. "But I stopped pretending a long time ago." That made her look at me differently. Her lips parted slightly, just a breath, no words. A quiet acknowledgement passed between us, fragile and electrifying. I could feel the space tighten, the way the air filled with everything we were too careful to say. She moved closer, not much, just enough that the edge of her blouse brushed my sleeve. I could hear the faint tremor in her breath, see the pulse flicker at her throat. "Do you have any idea," she said slowly, "how complicated this could get?" I nodded. "That's what makes it real." Her laugh was soft, almost disbelieving, but there was warmth in it, something human, tired, and wanting. For a long moment neither of us moved. The world outside was all rain and wind, but inside there was only this, the quiet thrum of something that had been waiting too long to be noticed. I wanted to reach out. She didn't step back. Her eyes dropped to my hand, then rose again, steady, unreadable, but not indifferent. She tilted her head slightly, as if trying to memorize the space between us. And then, just when I thought the silence would break, there was a sound. A door. Somewhere down the hallway. Her expression changed. "Someone's coming," she murmured. The moment fractured, like light through glass, but the warmth of it stayed. She looked at me once more, almost daringly, before turning toward the sound. "Don't go far," she said. And before I could answer, she was gone. The next morning, I told myself it had meant nothing. A moment caught between rain and silence, that was all. But hours later, I found myself in her office again. The door was half open, like an invitation she didn't mean to extend. She looked up from a file when I knocked. "You're early," she said, though I wasn't. "You left your umbrella," I replied, placing it on the desk. Her gaze softened for a second, then drifted away. You could have given it to your boss. He's family, after all. I smiled faintly. He wouldn't have noticed. The silence after that wasn't awkward, just aware. Her office smelled faintly of cedar and paper, the kind of scent that stays with you. She was wearing the same necklace she'd worn last night, a thin silver chain that caught the light whenever she moved. I pretended not to notice, but I did. Every detail of her had become impossible to ignore. She caught me looking once, and instead of looking away, she held my gaze. You're very bad at hiding things, she said quietly. I learned from someone who's very good at it, I said before I could stop myself. That earned a slow, unreadable smile. Careful, she murmured. I've spent years learning how not to feel things. Her words hung there, too honest, too soft. It turned out she'd been married once, long ago. I learned it not because she told me directly, but because of a half-folded photo on her desk, two people standing close, a younger version of her looking at someone else with a tenderness I hadn't yet earned. You still talk to him? I asked quietly. No, she said. He's somewhere in New York, I think. We stopped trying to fix what wasn't broken, just empty. Her tone wasn't bitter. Just tired. And then she added, as if realizing what she'd revealed, You're too young to understand that kind of silence. I almost laughed. Try me. She smiled, but didn't answer. Later, when she stood beside me at the filing cabinet, our hands brushed, barely a touch. But it was enough. The brief warmth of her skin felt like a question neither of us had the courage to ask. She drew in a small breath, then stepped back, pretending to adjust her sleeve. You shouldn't look at me that way, she said softly. Then stop standing so close, I replied. Her eyes flicked up to mine, sharp, startled, then soft again. You don't make this easy, do you? I wasn't trying to. Her laugh this time was real, quiet, disbelieving, but alive. She shook her head and turned away, yet her hand lingered on the edge of the desk, just within reach. For a long moment neither of us moved. The air felt heavier, charged, threaded with things we'd both begun to admit only in silence. When she finally spoke, her voice was almost a whisper. You should go before someone sees. But she didn't step back. Not yet. Instead, she reached out, brushing a stray thread from my sleeve, and let her fingers stay there just a heartbeat too long. That was all it took. A pause. A breath. An unspoken promise neither of us was ready to name, but both already believed. The next week blurred into late nights and unspoken things. We were working late again, or pretending to. She was at her desk, papers scattered in front of her, glasses sliding down the bridge of her nose. The overhead light flickered once, then steadied. Outside, the city hummed its quiet indifference. You should go home, she said without looking up. You say that every night, I replied, leaning against the doorframe. But you never do either. Her lips curved slightly. Maybe I like the quiet. Or maybe you like being left alone with your thoughts, I said, stepping closer. That made her look up. And you think you can compete with them? I shrugged. I don't have to. They keep bringing you back to me. Her expression changed, something quick, unguarded. Then the sound of her phone cut through the moment. She reached for it too fast, voice tightening. It's your boss, she said, glancing at the screen. He's asking if you're still here. My pulse jumped. What did you tell him? I haven't answered yet. The air seemed to freeze between us. I could hear the faint tick of the clock, the low hum of the air conditioning, the soft catch of her breath. I should probably go, I said. She didn't move. Probably. But neither of us did. Her phone buzzed again. She silenced it this time, the screen going dark. Her hand stayed there on the desk, fingers pressed against the glass, tense, undecided. I don't know what this is, she said finally. But it's dangerous. I stepped closer, until the lamplight fell across both of us. Then why are you still standing here? Her eyes lifted to mine, searching, questioning, almost pleading. Because you make me forget I shouldn't. She was close enough now that I could feel the warmth of her skin, the faint brush of her perfume. I didn't dare move, but everything in me already had. "You think this is just curiosity?" she whispered. "No," I said. "I think it's something we both tried to ignore." Her breath caught, sharp, trembling, as she turned slightly toward me. Our faces were close enough that her hair grazed my cheek when she exhaled. The moment stretched, fragile, suspended, her hand hovering between us like an unanswered question. And then, "Hey, are you two still?" The door cracked open. We jumped apart. It was Daniel, my boss, standing there with a file in his hand, looking between us. "Oh, you're both still here," he said casually, unaware. "Didn't mean to interrupt." She recovered first, forcing a smile. "Just finishing up some paperwork." He nodded, dropped the file on her desk, and left as quickly as he'd come. The door clicked shut. For a long time, neither of us breathed. Then she turned to me, eyes bright with panic and something deeper, something dangerously alive. "That can't happen again," she whispered. "I know." But she didn't move away this time. Instead, she reached for the file he'd left, her hand brushing mine again, softer this time, slower. Her voice trembled when she spoke. "You should really go." I didn't. She exhaled, eyes closing briefly, as if surrendering to something she'd been fighting for too long. When she opened them again, she didn't step back, she stepped closer. So close that every word she didn't say pressed against the silence between us. We didn't kiss. But we didn't need to. It was already happening, quietly, dangerously, completely. It started with silence. The kind that comes after too many nights pretending there's nothing to say. We were in the records room, dim, quiet, the kind of place where every breath feels louder than it should. She was reaching for a folder on the top shelf when her sleeve brushed mine. The scent of her, warm, faintly sweet, familiar, hit me all at once. "Careful," I murmured, reaching up just as she wobbled on her toes. Her hand landed on my shoulder for balance. Just that, a simple, human touch. But it felt like everything tilted. She steadied herself, but didn't pull away right away. Her fingers lingered on the fabric of my shirt, tracing the seam absently. When she finally did move, it was slower than it should have been. "You should really stop doing that," she whispered. "Doing what?" "Looking at me like you already know what's going to happen." I took a breath. "Maybe I do." Her eyes flicked toward me, sharp, warning, afraid. But she didn't deny it. The tension had been building for weeks, every meeting, every late-night email, every word we didn't say. And now it was spilling over. She turned to the shelf again, but her voice had changed, lower, raw. "You think this is simple? That you can just walk into my life and undo everything I've learned to live without?" "I'm not trying to undo anything," I said. "I just can't keep pretending it's not there." She laughed softly, but it cracked at the edges. "You're too young to know what you'll regret." "Then let me find out," I said, stepping closer. She froze when I reached out, my hand brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. She didn't stop me. Her eyes fluttered shut, just for a second. When they opened again, something in them had shifted, the restraint thinning, almost gone. "Don't," she whispered, but it didn't sound like a command. "Why not?" "Because I'm already thinking about it more than I should." My hand stayed near her cheek, not touching, not quite. I could feel her breath, the heat of it ghosting against my fingers. She looked up at me then, finally, directly. "You don't understand what people will say." "I don't care." "Well, I do," she said, but her voice trembled, and her hand came up, almost involuntarily, resting against my chest. The contact burned. The space between us was gone. The air thickened with everything we'd been holding back, the ache, the wanting, the fear. "Tell me to stop," I said quietly. She didn't. Instead, she whispered, "You make it so hard to remember why I should." Her eyes flickered down to my mouth, then back up again. The moment hovered, fragile, irreversible, the world narrowing to the sound of our breaths, the nearness of skin, the soft hum of something neither of us could name. And then, footsteps. Laughter. Voices from the hallway. She stiffened instantly, her hand still on my chest, heartbeat fluttering beneath her palm. "They'll see us," she breathed. I didn't move. "Then tell me what to do." Her answer came like a confession. "Don't make me choose." We stood there, so close the air between us pulsed, until the voices faded. And when it was quiet again, she whispered, almost to herself, "This can't keep happening." I leaned in, my words brushing her ear. "Then stop me." She didn't. The distance between us dissolved. Her breath caught, one sharp, breaking sound, and just as our lips almost met, the door handle turned. The sound of it froze everything. She stepped back, barely, but enough. Her eyes were wide, her voice trembling. "If you stay," she said, "everything changes." I didn't answer. Because we both knew it already had. The next morning, she wouldn't look at me. The meeting room was crowded, sunlight spilling through the blinds, everyone pretending to care about quarterly numbers. But all I could see was her, calm, composed, unreachable again. The only sign of what had almost happened last night was the faint tremor in her hand as she turned the pages of her report. When the meeting ended, she didn't wait for me to speak. She slipped out first, her voice steady as she told someone she had another call to take. I followed. She was by the window in the empty conference lounge, staring out at the rain-slicked street below. Her reflection in the glass looked softer somehow, more fragile than the version she showed everyone else. "Are we going to talk about last night?" I asked quietly. She didn't turn around. "There's nothing to talk about." "That's not true." Her shoulders tightened. "It has to be." I stepped closer. "Then why can't you even look at me?" She turned then, sharply, eyes bright with something raw. "Because someone saw us." My pulse stumbled. "What?" Her voice dropped. "Daniel. He came back after you left. He didn't say anything, but he looked at me like he knew." I felt the air leave the room. Did he know? But he didn't have to. She pressed her palm against the windowpane, her breath fogging the glass. "If this gets out, it won't just be awkward. It'll destroy everything." I moved closer, lowering my voice. "Then tell me what you want me to do." She laughed, quiet and hollow. "You think this is something you can fix?" "I can't fix it," I said. "But I'm not going to pretend it doesn't matter." Her eyes flicked up to mine, searching, as if she wanted to find disbelief there, and didn't. "You think this is easy for me?" she whispered. "I haven't let anyone close in years. Not since." She stopped herself, shaking her head. "Since what?" She hesitated. Then, almost too softly to hear, "Since I felt for someone who only saw me when no one else was watching." The words hit like a quiet confession, one she hadn't meant to say aloud. Her breath trembled as she exhaled. And here I am again, making the same mistake. I reached out, slowly, until my hand brushed hers against the cold glass. "You think I don't feel it too?" She flinched, but didn't pull away. Her voice shook. "You shouldn't." "But I do." She turned toward me, her face inches from mine now, eyes glistening with something that wasn't just fear. "You're too young to know what you'll lose from this," she whispered. "And you're too afraid to find out what you might gain." For a heartbeat, either of us breathed. Her hand slipped from the glass to my chest, not in invitation, but in restraint. "You don't understand," she said. "Daniel isn't just your boss. He's my cousin, and he's protective. If he thinks this is anything more than coincidence, he'll end your career before it starts." Her words should have scared me. They didn't. They only made the space between us burn hotter. "Then I guess," I said quietly, "we'll have to stop pretending it's not more than coincidence." She blinked, startled, as if I'd said the one thing she'd been waiting not to hear. And then she stepped back, breath uneven, heart clearly racing. "You don't know what you're doing," she whispered. "But you're about to find out." The look she gave me was a warning, and a promise. And before I could speak again, She turned and walked away, leaving her phone still lit on the table behind her. A message glowed across the screen. From Daniel. "We need to talk. It's about him." The moment I read it, I knew the line we'd been dancing around was gone. And there was no going back. It was late, the kind of late where the world forgets about time. Her office light was still on. Through the glass, I saw her sitting there, motionless, her phone face down beside her. I knew she'd seen the message. Daniel's message? When I knocked, she didn't answer. So I opened the door anyway. She looked up slowly, as if she'd been waiting for me and hoping I wouldn't come at the same time. "You shouldn't be here," she said, the same words she'd used that first night. But this time, her voice broke halfway through. "Then tell me to leave," I said. She didn't. I closed the door behind me, and the quiet that followed felt like the edge of a confession. Her hair was slightly undone, her blouse creased, signs of a long night she hadn't intended to show anyone. The lamp on her desk flickered, catching the shine in her eyes. "You saw the message?" she asked softly. I nodded. "Then you know it's over," she said. "He's suspicious. It's only a matter of time." "Over?" I took a step closer. "You think this was something we could just switch off?" She stood then, slowly, every motion deliberate, as if holding herself together took effort. "You don't understand what this could cost." "I don't care." "Yes, you do," she said. "You'll care when it ruins you. When everyone starts looking at you the way they look at me, like I should have known better." Her voice trembled at the last part. I took another step until I was close enough to feel the warmth radiating off her skin. "Maybe knowing better isn't the same as doing better." She met my eyes then, no defense left, only the ache of wanting and the fear of it. "You make everything sound so simple." "It's not simple," I said. "It's just real." Her breath hitched when I reached up, slowly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. My hand lingered there, close enough that she could have stepped away. She didn't. "Tell me this doesn't matter," I said. She closed her eyes, shaking her head. "It matters too much." The silence between us thickened, full of the things we'd both been running from. My fingers hovered near her jaw, and her hand came up, trembling slightly, catching my wrist. "Please," she whispered, "don't make me choose." "I already have," I said. Her eyes opened, wide, unguarded, shining. The air between us broke open. She leaned forward, just barely, the smallest motion, but enough. Our foreheads almost touched. I could feel her breath, her heartbeat against mine. "This isn't fair," she whispered. "I know." Her hand slid from my wrist to my chest, fingers pressing lightly as if testing whether she could push me away. She didn't. For a moment, the world shrank to nothing but that, her breath, her warmth, the pull that felt like gravity itself. Then she whispered, "If we do this, there's no going back." "I'm not asking to go back," I said. The words hung there, suspended between us. And for a heartbeat, she stopped resisting. She leaned in, just enough that the distance vanished. But before it became a kiss, she drew in a shaky breath and pressed her hand against my heart, stopping me. "Don't," she said softly, eyes glistening. "Not because you want me. Because you mean it." "I do," I said. She searched my face, long, searching, unbelieving, and then something inside her eased. Her hand stayed on my chest. "Then maybe," she whispered, "this isn't the end after all." We stood there, two people who had already made the choice, even if they couldn't yet say it aloud. And for the first time, it felt like we finally understood each other, completely, painfully, beautifully. The building was empty by the time she finally stepped outside. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets shining under the amber glow of the streetlights. I was waiting near the corner, hands buried in my coat pockets, unsure if she'd come, but hoping she would. She saw me before I spoke. For a second, she hesitated in the doorway, her hair damp from the drizzle, her bag hanging loosely at her side. Then she exhaled, like she'd made peace with something, and walked toward me. "You didn't go home," she said. "I wasn't sure if you'd want me to." She smiled, small, tired, real. "I didn't know what I wanted. Until now." We stood there, the night quiet around us. She looked softer than I'd ever seen her, not guarded, not composed, just her. "I talked to Daniel," she said. "Told him I needed space. He thinks it's work-related." I blinked. "And you're okay with that?" She nodded slowly. "For once, I'm not trying to control everything. I'm just letting it be what it is." There was no tension left between us now, only a quiet relief. The kind that comes after too many almosts, too many goodbyes that never happened. We walked down the block in silence, our shoulders brushing every few steps. The air smelled of wet pavement and jasmine from the nearby trees. When she finally stopped, it was by a small cafe with the lights still on inside. "Coffee?" I asked. She shook her head. "Just a minute," she said softly, and turned toward me. Her eyes met mine, steady, unhurried. "You scared me," she admitted. "Not because of who you are, but because of what you made me remember, what it felt like to be seen again." I swallowed, unsure how to respond. "And now?" "No," she said. "I don't feel scared anymore." She reached up, brushing a raindrop from my hair, her fingers lingering a little too long. The warmth of her touch made the rest of the world fade. I took her hand then, gently, carefully, as if asking for permission. She didn't pull away. Instead, she intertwined her fingers with mine, her thumb tracing small circles on my skin. No words. No grand gestures. Just the quiet certainty that we were both done pretending. We sat inside the cafe, side by side in a corner booth. She leaned against the window, her shoulder pressed to mine, our hands still joined on the table. The city outside blurred into soft gold and gray. "I used to think love had an expiration date," she said quietly. "That after a certain age, it's just nostalgia." "And now?" I asked. She smiled, that small, knowing kind of smile that feels like the end of a storm. "Now I think maybe it just takes longer to find the right timing." I leaned closer, brushing my forehead against hers. She closed her eyes, and for a long, still moment, everything was simple: the warmth of her hand, the steady rhythm of her breath, the quiet between us that no longer felt empty. When she opened her eyes again, she whispered, "You're not supposed to be here." I smiled. "But you're glad I am?" She laughed softly, the kind of laugh that feels like a promise. Outside, the lights changed, the rain began again, and for once, neither of us moved to leave.